I'll call the meeting to order. It is 6:30 on Tuesday, February 27th. First agenda will be approving the previous meeting minutes. Has everybody, I know we have 3 members of the committee, an opportunity to review the minutes from our last scheduled law committee meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Flanagan, a second to approve the minutes. Second by Mr. Mayo, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. We'll go on to current business. Item number 1, public hearing on proposed local law number A. I saw Mr.
Take one and pass
Oh,
it
there
on.
he is. He's right over there. Okay, Mr. Mayo, would you like to just discuss this briefly with us, or do you want us to, what would you like? Want to talk about that?
Everybody should have a copy of the proposed law, local law, I emailed everyone, and also a letter of support. Basically, this would require that pharmacies will not be able to sell tobacco products in the pharmacy. And a grocery store, that will also be covered under this. All tobacco products will not be sold. This is a law that was passed by Rockland, also New York City. So we passed it back, I think, about 5-6 years ago, maybe, and it was vetoed, but we addressed the issues with the enforcement stuff in there, so hopefully we'll go through this time as well.
Great, so this is just the public hearing on the underlying local law.
Yes, yeah.
So do you want to move out the public hearing now and table the local law
Yes,
pending?
yeah.
Okay, and it's my understanding there's an amendment to the local law, Mr. Miller, is that correct?
Yeah, it just changed the enforcement date because there was, when you had T21, when you put a date in there, 30 days or 90 days afterwards, you don't know exactly when it's going to, enforcement date is, so I put a date about January 1st, so we'll know for sure that it'll be in effect on January 1st. Otherwise, you have to wait for it to come back from the Department of State, from the filing, and you don't know when the 90 days will be, so I just changed that to
Okay.
January 1st. So we'll have enough time to get back from the Department of State. Should be all in good shape.
It seems pretty straightforward to me. Mr. Flanagan?
Quick question, you mentioned that grocery stores will be covered. I know
If they
that,
have a pharmacy.
throughout, any time we've talked about regulating grocery stores, whether it's polystyrene or something else, the argument has been that grocery stores were entirely regulated by ag and markets law. Is that different for pharmacies within
Well,
a grocery store?
We did the T21 applies to the grocery stores also. I mean, anybody selling tobacco. So California put some laws into effect, and they were challenged in court because they didn't include grocery stores. And they went back and put them in because of that, because they said they were being treated unfairly. Because if you think about it, CVS, Rite Aid, they sell a lot of the same products the grocery store sells also. So I mean, to just pick them out and say we're only going to have ones that are standalone pharmacies. I mean, where do you even define standalone pharmacies? So
Yeah, I don't,
within it, that would be covered.
yeah, I don't disagree on the fairness. I think I'm looking at more of a preemption question. I think California is irrelevant because it's totally different state law. My sense had been that groceries have been entirely regulated by state ag and markets law, and thus the Department of Agriculture. So there was always question as to whether we had the ability to do anything with grocery stores, which is why we backed them out of some of our environmental laws.
But if it's a pharmacy, don't they have unique regulation because they're a pharmacy?
I don't know, because pharmacies otherwise are freestanding and are entirely on their own. Grocery stores are regulated by ag and markets.
Pharmacies are regulated by the Department of Health, and the pharmacists are regulated by the State Ed Department for their license.
So,
So,
Right.
I don't,
I guess my question is, since I think it's fairly clear that ag and markets regulates groceries entirely, whether we can affect groceries under this, because I know we've talked about in other things, particularly polystyrene, so.
what,
Well, I mean, what's the difference between, if you take, let's take Price Chopper, for example, versus CVS. I mean, they both sell groceries, and even CVS says well, they don't sell tobacco anyway, but they call it a pharmacy within the CVS or something like that, so I mean,
Yeah, I'm not questioning the fairness of it. I'm questioning whether the state has preempted the regulation of groceries purely under ag and markets law, which there was some argument about that.
Mr. Kraus?
Perhaps you could make an inquiry to the Department of Agriculture, State Department, and find out if that's the case
So-
before we get too far down the line.
You raised an excellent point, Mr. Kraus, and I know in the past, we have relied on a county attorney here and there for opinions on different resolutions and local laws that come before the committee. to address a lot of these preemption issues, some of the more technical issues about whether or not the county can in fact pass legislation like this. Moving forward, I'm going to be very interested in getting those opinions from the county attorney and allowing members of the committee to review them for a lot of the different pending legislation that we're going to be, undertaking in the next several months and hopefully
Good idea.
years. I see no reason why we shouldn't do that. I think a lot of these issues that are being raised are good points, and they're salient, and that's what we're here, to go through. So,
I would like to comment on that, because I've had an ongoing concern with that, because the county attorney is a different branch of government. He's not in the legislative branch. He's an appointee. He reports directly to the executive. If he has the ability to block any local law, the executive essentially has 2 vetoes. And I have no comment about the current executive, but any executive in the future could use that disingenuously to block an item that he or she doesn't want to deal with as a veto. I don't have any problem with getting county attorney opinions. I do have a problem with requiring it, and I do have a problem with requiring it as a condition of going forward. If people want to get an opinion and it's persuasive, that's fine. Each of our conferences within the legislative body, within our branch of government, has counsel. Those attorney opinions should be just as valid moving forward as the opinion of someone completely outside of our branch.
sure, that's a valid point. Ultimately, it'll be up to the members to review all the information that's provided to the members of the committee and the legislators and, make a decision on, what they want to, assess more weight to, whether it's their own counsel's opinion, their own opinion, an opinion from the county attorney. I'm simply saying, I'm interested in making this request to the county attorney's office. We'll get some information back, we'll provide it to the members. If they'd like some additional information from our own counsel, for the sponsor to get, that's great. We have a month anyway on the underlying local law here, since this is just to move out his public hearing. So that's what I'd like to do here. Mr. Lynch is here. Oh, Ms. Plotsky.
Just a question for Mr. Miller. Any sense on how stores stock the product? Are they in the middle of contracts that they might be, in violation of if they don't continue? Like this says to be effective 1/1/2019 in order to allow businesses to liquidate their product. Is that enough time for them? I'm not in favor of tobacco sales. I'm just trying to not hurt
I guess
businesses.
since it's only law in the county, let's take Hannaford, and they could shift their product over to another Hannaford.
Oh, yeah.
If they need to, I mean, Rockland County has theirs in place already, and they did prohibit any retailers that maintain a pharmacy within their establishment, so that hasn't been challenged as of yet. So I don't know, I'd be more than happy to talk to the agriculture department if you'd like.
I'm just wondering what the real impact is on someone who's running the business and needs to pull that off the shelves and call someone to have to cancel my order for the next, 2 years.
That's why
So,
we'll give them time to do that.
all right. How do we come to the 500 per day?
It was just, based on what we had in the gas bill and
Okay.
particular reason behind it, and they wanted
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Clenihan.
That's one more quick question. I don't expect to have this tonight, but maybe you can get back to us. Do you have any sense of how many pharmacies currently do sell tobacco products? I know CVS, as a policy, has pulled off all theirs, and they're the biggest in the area. And I don't know if Walgreens has a particular policy, but now they recently bought Rite Aid, so
Walgreens still selling it, Hannaford's is selling it, the Price Choppers where they went to Market 32 are not selling it, and ShopRite has one ShopRite that's selling it with a pharmacy, but they also have the other 2 ShopRites that are selling tobacco, but they don't have pharmacies in them. And the information I got was that there's no independent pharmacies in the county that have them, that just sell tobacco.
no independent, okay. So hang on, under this, grocery stores couldn't sell tobacco either?
Right, yeah. If they have a pharmacy there. If they don't have a pharmacy, they can sell. There's,
What's the reasoning for that? They sell all manner of products.
what's the reason? Because they have pharmacies in there, and the the pharmacies are providing health products to the customers that are coming into the store, and, they're prohibiting them from selling tobacco, they're having a pharmacy within the grocery store.
But they sell all manner of unhealthy things, and they may sell cigarettes And most that I know of sell them like locked up behind the counter, nowhere near the pharmacy. So where, you know, I'm not passing judgment on smoking, I'm against it as anybody, but where will these products be available?
It's basically, well, all the convenience stores have them. And there's a lot of
That's it?
freestanding tobacco stores now too. That are, you know, if you look throughout the city, there's more and more popping up. You know, the freestanding tobacco stores are, you know, selling tobacco products and vapor or whatever else it might be selling. There's currently 81 pharmacies in the county, 33 of them sell tobacco products.
But all chains, you said all independents
They're
are
all
not.
changed, yeah. 13 Rite Aids, 3 Walgreens, 3 Walmarts, 1 ShopRite, 6 Hanford, and 7 Price Shoppers.
What
Okay.
about Sam's Club? They have pharmacies?
Probably not. I don't think they do. I don't know,
Walmart
it's not on
does.
the list I got, so.
Walmart does.
Is that your question,
Walmart.
Mr.
Walmart.
You asked to be recognized. Is
Walmart.
that-
I'm just curious, has anybody done any, I am an anti-smoking person, okay? But tobacco is legal. And, you know, we're the only county in the capital region where sales tax has gone down. Because we want to send our 18-year-olds who serve in the Army to a different county to get cigarettes, because we
cupcakes.
get, and cupcakes, because we've determined that we shouldn't do that. I mean, I understand the real desire here is to ban cigarettes. I mean,
Let's
there's,
reduce the, you know.
It's
people-
to re-
outside smoking, yes.
I mean, there was a time when cigarettes were next to the candy at the checkouts, and now, as Brian mentioned, they're locked up, and, you know, you have to get proof to buy them, and you have to prove that you're 21. I mean, I don't smoke, nobody in my family has smoked, I've got relatives who have died, but from lung issues, but are we really, well, I mean,
Well, I think
should we be going after restaurants? Should restaurants have
We already
a,
did that.
huh?
We already did that.
You did restaurants?
No, we did the smoking bans, that's right.
Trash feds.
Yeah, but there are still places that have cigarette machines.
No, I know,
I mean, but what I'm saying is, if it's a legal product and it's legal in all the counties around you, why do you create a disincentive to push people at 11 o'clock at night to go someplace else to get it? I just don't understand it.
Mr. Fine, then Ms. Cunningham.
Thank you. Alcohol is legal. We highly regulate alcohol. Liquor can only be sold at liquor stores. The state highly regulates how many liquor stores can open. It's very hard to open a new one. So I think it makes sense. I think it's weird that cigarettes are sold at, you know, every corner store, convenience store, pharmacy, grocery store. I think it should
You can
be.
get beer at every druggroup too.
Absolutely.
You can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the next thing?
I don't know, and maybe that's a separate discussion, but
I know, but I mean, you know.
my point is, we do regulate where, you know, dangerous things like liquor, tobacco, can be sold. And I think it makes sense to do that.
Ms. Cunningham?
I think there's some unique differences, first and foremost, between alcohol and nicotine products. Moderate use of alcohol has health benefits. Moderate use of tobacco, nicotine, does not. I think the other thing, and there's a lot of data to support this, that lack of access to a product does have an impact on whether or not an individual chooses to purchase it. And tobacco products, you know, that the harder they are to get, you do see smoking rates decline. So I think, yes, this is a strong public health statement on behalf of Albany County to do this, to further restrict the access component. But I honestly believe that we are on the right side of a movement that is taking hold everywhere. And someday, believe it or not, we will get to a point where I think that the the number of Americans smoking will be minuscule. We've seen smoking rates decline over the years because of initiatives like this. And yes, there will be some limited impact of folks that, don't choose to attempt to quit, to drive to a neighboring county. But over time, you will see initiatives like this have an impact on the overall smoking participation rates. I mean, the data is irrefutable with respect to that.
I don't doubt the data.
Okay, so, is there any other member who wishes to be heard on number one, the moving out the public hearing for the underlying local law Mr. Miller is sponsoring? I know there's an amendment to change the date from February 27th to March 27th, right?
The item that was passed around was the version as amended. Mr. Miller had suggested, or had requested, that the effective date be January 1st, 2019. That was the version that was distributed. In order to pass this resolution with the proper date on it, it was submitted with a February 27th date, which is tonight. The public hearing would not be held until after the full legislature voted on it, in which case it would be, the appropriate date is March 27th. So that would be
Very
the,
thorough explanation,
that would be the, if you were passing this resolution, it would be with that
as amended.
as amended.
Does anybody have any thoughts to that? Is everybody okay with moving out the resolution? Okay, can I have a motion?
So moved.
A second? Mr. Fine, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, Mr. Miller, your public hearing is moved out to the full body. Item number 2, requiring contractors and subcontractors on Albany County construction projects with $100,000 or more to provide apprenticeship training programs. Mr. Signoranci.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Clenahan and Mr. Miller are all here. Is there somebody who'd like to provide an explanation of what this does?
Currently, we have an apprenticeship program, as everybody knows, at $250,000 is the limit, meaning that if you have a project.
Can I just interrupt you for 1 second? Mr. Lynch, can we get an opinion on the Tobacco 21 local law also? I got so immersed in the debate, I forgot to ask you.
Yes, I made some notes, I'll provide the opinion.
Thank you.
It's in
I
regards,
apologize,
if I could
Mr.
just clarify,
Signoranci.
Mr. Chair, it's in regards to the preemption of ag and markets, is that the issue?
Yes, and whether or not we can legally move forward enacting such a law. All right, I apologize, Mr. Signoranci, it just popped into my head. I didn't want to have you get too far ahead of us.
You're the chairman. So we have the $250,000 apprenticeship program on the books now. What myself and a few of my colleagues are looking to do is to decrease the amount so that we can get more unionized labor contracts in the county. And we started out with $100,000. We figure, at least my thought was, is that you have the cab that goes up to $99,999, and anything that the full body, any project that comes out to us where we either have to bond and or pay for, $100,000 that the legislative has prerogative over on voting up or down. So we put 100 to lower that threshold to 100,000. And that's pretty much it. I defer to any of my other colleagues if they have any other points.
Yeah, the other thing is, I mean, 2 quick things. I think we kind of had the sense over the last several years that a lot of our construction projects were not falling under the apprenticeship requirements for whatever reason. And I think as a body, for the last 30 years, we've all taken the position that apprenticeships were a real positive. They give real training opportunities to young folks to learn a skill, to learn a trade. They were a real benefit to people in the area. And many big projects that we've had the last couple of years seem to kind of get around those requirements, whether it was the number or there were just some uncertainty from the contractors. And I think that's the other element of this, is that we are also requiring that contractors have an active apprenticeship program that has graduated at least 30% of the people. I remember some of the proposals that came forward where these contractors would produce, a letter at the last minute saying, well, yeah, we had an apprentice program, and never any evidence that it worked, never evidence that anybody participated, never showed graduation rates, never really showed that it worked at all. So I think between the element of lowering the threshold number, plus requiring the contract is to show, some real progress in terms of graduating people from their programs. We'll really make sure we create the maximum number of job learning opportunities.
Mr. Kraus?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just for purposes of clarification, then what you're saying right now is if you are a contractor and you fall within that range of $100,000 to $250,000, and you haven't had an apprenticeship program, now you must, in order to bid on those projects.
Yes.
Regardless of the size of your firm, or what the cost of an apprenticeship program would be to you, or whether or not it's really even necessary for the people that you have doing the work. So you're basically saying if you're not part of this program, if you're not part of the union, basically, we're excluding you from participating.
Couple of things. Apprenticeship program doesn't necessarily have to be union, so
But
it's
in
not
most-
strictly.
In most cases, though, I think we would find that is the case.
I would say in many, I'm not sure I know enough to say most, but it's
Majority.
perhaps a majority, but it's not overwhelming. There are non-union apprenticeship programs. And, I think in terms of, I think we're here really for an open discussion tonight. If people have real concerns about anything, we certainly talk around the margins and see if we can make this as effective as possible in terms of any of the variables. But I think the takeaway is that these really are valuable programs. These really create jobs and really create trade learning situations for folks. And
I don't dispute that they're valuable programs. I'm just disputing whether or not, we're reducing them from 250 to 100, and usually there is a reason to do that. And I'm not sure I see the reason other than to try to capture a greater number, requiring more apprenticeship programs, but I'm not so sure that anybody can show me, well, there's a huge need because we're falling short because we don't have this in place. And if that were the case, I would certainly entertain that, but I'm not so sure. I mean, Mr. Signoraci mentioned we're using the $100,000 figure because that's the figure that's there, but
also,
why?
too, and one of the other things that I remiss without saying is that there have been, on occasion, that one could look at contracts being split that would have, if they were in the aggregate, would have been more than a $250,000 level, and individuals would have had to meet the apprenticeship program, but seeing as that they were split for whatever reason, or having certain components pulled out for job A, job B, job C, that they were able to dilute, and then it would thus lower or reduce, and you didn't have the 250,000 threshold because they were more or less kind of splitting or pulling apart jobs that if they were in the aggregate would have to meet the apprenticeship program.
So are you claiming that in many cases those splits were done as a way to evade the...
I can't be certain, and I don't want to go on record that anybody did anything inappropriate or tried to get away, but one could look at it, if they look at the facts a certain way, that that has been done where they split contracts so it didn't hit the threshold.
Okay, Mr. Fine?
Thank you.
And then I have Ms. Cunningham and Mr. Bergdorf.
I have a concern about this, and it's that I'm worried about the effect it's going to have on minority and women-owned businesses. Oftentimes, MWBEs, from speaking with MWBEs, Department of Affirmative Action, they're often smaller, they often don't have apprenticeship programs, and the $250,000 threshold is already a barrier for them. So I'm concerned that this is going to make it more difficult for them to get involved in county contracts, when I think we should really be looking to see what we can do to expand opportunities for them.
Okay.
Yeah, I
guess
wondered
if
what
I could respond
response
briefly.
is that, Yeah.
Or do you want to go with the questions? I'll respond to
Yeah, no,
that.
I mean, if you
I'm
have an
curious
answer to
if
this question.
you've thought about that, or how you feel this will affect.
Well, a couple things. I mean, I think in general, if we want to, and I think we're just starting a discussion here tonight, we're not, I
Yeah.
don't want to speak for Ralph, I don't think we're looking to move this, I don't think we're, really want to begin a discussion. If there's a way to achieve that goal and still move forward with the overall plan, I think that would possibly make sense. I know in terms of state contracts with NWB, when a company is worth a certain amount, they've been successful to a certain degree, they no longer qualify for those benefits. Perhaps something like that would make sense here.
Ms. Cunningham?
Open to discussion about that.
So
That's
just a
interesting
couple
point.
questions. One is, So it sounds like you're trying to solve two problems. One primary problem is the lack of adherence to the existing threshold, that there's not adherence to that if you are in fact supposed to be doing this. So that language in that paragraph on the last page kind of deals with that. So putting teeth in that, is that the intent of that?
I think what we saw a lot of in the past several years were contractors would come in with a one-page letter saying they did have a program, never any idea about what it did or how many people it had, whether it was, state sanctioned, whether the DOL approved
So
it.
it's a little superficial.
It was, probably, but you really couldn't tell. I think this is trying to be clear that, just having something on paper really shouldn't be adequate to satisfy these requirements.
And
You
is
have to show
there-
some effort and graduation.
So is there existing language somewhere that governs what the requirements are to produce that you're amending, or is this all, this looks like it's all
I
new?
will get you the language, the original resolution, most recent resolution was 2011. Before that, the existing resolution, I couldn't tell you how old it was around a long time.
That's an excellent point. I was actually going to ask if anybody, one of the sponsors, had a copy of the old policy.
I could email it to you.
Yeah, that would be really helpful to see. And is it possible to get this proposal as a markup of what the current
Yeah,
county
that's what I was
policy
gonna
is?
That's what I-
Underlined, bracketed out, striking out, like we've been
I mean,
trying to do?
I guess.
To move towards that. It's hard for me to take a new, and I'm a lawyer, take this new thing and compare it to something else without seeing what the old one is. I don't know if that's possible or not to do, but it's something I'm interested in
We
trying.
can
Is it
certainly
possible?
try to highlight it. I mean, it's not, I don't think we want to look at this as amending existing law. I mean, this is, apprenticeship programs have been a policy of the county since
Or-
probably 30, 35 years. But if we want to try to highlight what would be, fine-tuned from the 2011 resolution, we can do that.
Yeah, to me, that would be helpful, or at least if we're gonna pass something like that, put some language in and say, oh, this is gonna supersede our 2011 policy that the county's been following for 7 years. That's just my 2 cents, my own personal opinion. Mr. Bergdorf, you?
I had the same underlying concern that I think there's a law or a rule of the legislature that we passed that said that resolutions had to be in the format so that you could clearly see additions and deletions. So I would like to see it in that format as well, because I've got a bunch of concerns that I'll sort of go through, and I'm not asking anyone to respond to them individually. But you're talking about the language of the term construction contract shall mean any contract to which Albany County is direct or indirect party. Well, I don't know what that means. Does that mean that the Albany County Industrial Development Agency is now being brought under the umbrella of this? Does it mean that the Albany County Nursing Home, well, we have a PLA there, that's probably a bad example, but does it mean that the Albany County Nursing Home that relies upon State Department of Health monies, but the construction projects are administered, are subject to this? Because this goes far beyond any state requirements, so there are preemption issues. There are, at some point in time, and Brian and I had a few words about this on the floor, when we authorized Soldier On, there was a suggestion that Soldier On be built with apprenticeship programs and prevailing wages. And the bottom line was, if you made that requirement, that project would never be built. So, I mean, the question of, I can't see whether we're changing the definition of what's covered.
So, I mean, I guess, for the members of the committee and the legislature at large, would it be possible, to try to get a version that sort of does that for next month, as Mr. Bergdorf said, or at very minimum, bring the old policy and kind of show a compare and contrast, for members to see? I know that would be helpful to me.
I think we'll do whatever we can to make it more clear.
Sure.
I do have to say that I kind of think that the rule showing the bracket and the underlying changes was more about highlighting changes as something went through an evolution between introduction and final vote on the floor so we can do the changes that were made in the committee process. Not so much as to how a resolution from, 7 years ago was changed. Because by that argument, every time we do a new contract resolution, we would have to show bracketed compared to the old contract, which basically did the renewal of the same thing.
I mean, I can only speak for, when I did the styrofoam update, I took the current law, the old law, the current law, and I bracketed that, I made the changes within that context, and that's what I presented to everybody. That, I found it easy. Mr. Bergdorf's got a point, we did pass a bill to do that. And I think in the interim, if members have questions, you have a lot of very specific questions, Mr. Bergdorf, if you can provide them.
I would be delighted to.
To us and to the sponsors so they can kind of work through them, I think that would be very helpful.
Well,
So we come back next month with this information.
Let
I
me
mean,
just mention a couple other things,
Oh,
Judge,
sure.
just so I put them on the record.
Sure.
Evidently, people seem to believe that we have a problem between 250,000 and 100,000. I asked the county executive's office for a list of all awardees of contracts for the last 2 years, construction contracts. Because I think we all ought to see what it is that we're doing and not be dealing in a hypothetical. Who is getting the work, who isn't getting the work. And I also asked for a list of MWBE contractors that this county has awarded to over the last 2 years. Because I don't think we award to very many as a primary contract.
I see Mr. Phelan in the back. Is it possible to get that information
We can definitely see what we
for
can
the
do.
committee?
And that's something that maybe we can even
Yeah.
work into the resolution.
Yeah.
The only reason why that, again, 100,000 is because that's the legislature, what we
Right.
have control over. CAB is something that's totally
Okay, well,
different.
I
so
just
that-
want to explain to you that under Sam and Wanda's leadership, we were able to up MWBE numbers this year. That's because they were able to demonstrate to folks that the state of New York, when they built the convention center, achieved 27% MWBE stuff, our goals, and our goals were what?
They were,
5
5
and
and 7
7, they were 12%. The way that a contractor is able to do that is by carving out small packages, so that you can create a $150,000 contract for a small minority or woman painter, okay? And even though the project may be above $100,000, you can then hire an MWBE that doesn't have an internship program, okay?
Ms. Plotsky and Mr. Clennahan, are you finished, Mr. Bergdorf?
I got one more thing. Department of Labor approved internship programs. A number of years ago, as people were going through this exercise, there were non-union firms that were associated with ABC, which is Associated Builders and Contractors. They're the non-union firms. They tried to establish their own internship programs so that they could at least compete under the fact that, and the Department of Labor told them at that time that they were not considering any new applications for internship programs. So what I'm afraid, apprenticeship programs, I'm sorry. So, by dropping the number and requiring internship programs, I think you're effectively shutting out 80% of the construction industry in Albany County. I mean, in your towns and cities, most of the
But
contractors.
this is only with Albany County, not with what goes on anywhere else. It's only with Albany County.
But why would,
And I'm
if there's
here's
a
the thing,
construction company in Cohoes, why do you want to tell them they can't work on Albany County work? But I mean, right, I realize.
Sure,
But they got to bid on and win to work, is also the other thing. But I get your point on that, and I think one of the things that, I will talk with the other two sponsors at, is that you bring up a salient point with the MWBE and the WBE, maybe that you carve out a section that, maybe it's not 100,000, maybe it's 150, and you do something that you have, a portion that's carved out for, MBE, or WMBE contractors. So you can wind up putting something in to incorporate that. So I think that this is just kind of
Yeah.
informative session to try to find out what everybody's thinking so that we can actually do something that makes sense for, not only for those that are in unions, but those that are, minority-owned businesses as well as the women-based businesses, so that we're able to, do things.
I will send you a
Sebastian?
I'm sorry.
I have also concerns about the MWBE, but also the non-MWBE small businesses, that this would essentially remove them from the bidding process. It would be too expensive. I want to see the numbers. What does it cost to run an apprenticeship program? How many apprentices are you supposed to have? What's the impact on that business? How many of these contractors right now have approved apprenticeship programs? If it's only 4, and those are the only 4 contractors that will ever get a contract over $100,000 from the county, that's a concern. So I want the data.
Okay.
Also, if we already have an apprenticeship program that is not functioning well, why are we expanding it? We should be focusing on making that a good program
Sure.
before we roll
We
it
don't have
out.
it. This is what the contractors have.
Yeah, so
So
where's
what
their
we're-
accountability?
So what we're doing
for
is
that
we're
being a
actually
good
trying to
program?
lower the level. So that's all you're doing is the dollar amount. So the current thing that's in place is you're just dropping the dollar amount.
This is.
Understood.
This is a very good discussion. I think there's a lot of interesting points that members are bringing up. Hopefully we can get some of this information from management and budget in Public Works, on the executive side to come back. I guess for purposes of tonight, Mr. Clan, and you kind of indicated you wanted to table this.
Can I make a couple?
Yeah, of course, sure.
But yeah, absolutely. Frank
Oh,
Mr.
Ralph,
Sigarachi
I'm
also.
sorry. I'm sorry.
We're together on it.
Okay.
But yeah, I think we want to table this and continue discussion
Okay.
and certainly look at some of these ideas that were brought up. 2 quick things. My understanding of direct versus indirect party is the county is a direct party to a contractor with a contractor. We are an indirect party to contracts between contractors and subcontractors. I will verify if that's the generally accepted labor understanding, but that's my understanding. And in terms of 2 more quick things. In terms of what we're doing with this graduation number is not so much trying to salvage that program, but trying to plug a loophole that contractors have been taking advantage of.
Because they would come
Questionable
in with
means
the
or not,
one-liner.
but
And they would
No
wind up
proof.
saying, oh, they, went to this union over here, they wound up getting the one-liner, they turned it in, and they have nothing that they're just bypassing the apprenticeship program and the whole intent behind it.
Okay,
And the
so,
last thing I wanted to say, just to kind of clarify one thing that Mr. Bergdorf said, comparing the 5 to 6% versus the 27% of the state contracts on MWE participation is actually apples and oranges. The 27% that the state uses is based on the percentage of the workforce. The 5 to 6%.
No, it's not.
No, I have confirmed that with several labor sources. The 5 to 6% that we were talking about in the nursing home contract was based on the percentage of MWB contractors.
And I'm telling you that the MWB, as Sam will tell you, the MWB awards at the Capitol Center were over 25%. And we have the same construction manager at the nursing home that achieved those goals. Now, and I'm not talking about workforce participation, I'm talking about MWBE goals.
My understanding of the state was based on the workforce percentage.
We both workforce and MWB goals in our plans.
Right, but the state 30% is the workforce. The 5 to 7 that we were talking about for the nursing home is based on the contractors.
I think we'll have to
got
look-
some disputing
My
facts
understanding
and
was both,
information
we'll
here,
have to,
so
I guess,
let's
look
see.
that up to confirm.
see if we can get this information to the members of the committee, so we can see what we're dealing with. That being said, is everybody comfortable at Mr. Sigarachi and Mr. Clenahan's?
Mr. Miller.
And Mr. Miller, I'm sorry, he's back there.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask if anybody else that is here would like to go on the resolution as well. Speak up, if forever not hold your peace. Guess nobody.
Paul, you went?
Going once, going twice. Going 3
I'm
times.
undecided, call again.
So,
I'll get back, John.
for the time being, I guess we'll table this at your request.
Yes, please.
Okay. Everyone in favor of that?
Yes.
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Item number 3, Mr. Miller, this is your local law. Can we table this at your request pending item number 2 is tabled? Item number 4, I'm sorry, Ms. Ziegler. I saw you back there. You should have moved to you first. I apologize.
No, it's certainly been an interesting discussion, I thank you. Enjoyed it.
can you take us through items number 4 and 5?
Certainly, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and members of the, thank you so much, I appreciate your time. The first, number 4, is that the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services has the GIVE grant, which is the Gun Involved Violence Elimination Act, and this is the, I think, the 4th year. And what they do is they give the money to the Albany Police Department, probation, the DA's office, law enforcement agencies, and the police department has been subcontracting with us so that we can provide trauma response teams to the community. And what this does is, after there's a shooting or very serious stabbing, someone goes out to the hospital to speak to the individual, the victim, to speak with the family, to speak with the community. And the goal is to circumvent further violence. Unaddressed violence can lead to further violence. We hope to kind of reframe that and move into a healing and compassionate place as opposed to just cycles of violence throughout our community.
And this is just state money, correct?
This is state money, yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Ziegler? No? Can I have a motion, Mr. Clennahan, second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion carries. And would you mind just bringing us through item number 5 also?
Certainly. The Take Back the Night is one of the signature events for crime victims. We have this generally in April every year and often during Crime Victims' Rights Week. This is something that we partner with our colleges and our community members with, and it's really around giving voice to those victims, and it really kind of falls wonderfully well with the Me Too movement. We're looking to bring it back to the Lake House.
Great.
And this allows us to contract with Albany City for the use of the Lake House and then law enforcement horse patrol to escort us on our march.
I remember when it used to go through the lake, through Washington Park,
Yes.
many, many years ago when I was in
Yes.
college. So I think that's a great idea. Okay. Do you have anybody have any questions?
I comment on a question. This is a fantastic event, and it's gotten better every year since you've been in charge, so congratulations, thank you. What's the date?
April 19th.
April 19th, okay.
Mr. Kraft?
Just a point of clarification, if we could just go back to number 4 again.
Certainly.
My information says it's federal funding, not state funding.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
apologize. It's federal funding that goes through the state
pass through.
office. So I apologize for my mistake. It is federal funding that goes through New York State.
Thank you.
Okay, back to item number 5. Did anybody have any other questions on this item? If not, can I have a motion? Mr. Clennahan, second. Ms. Cunningham, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Good luck with the event. Please let us know how we can be of further assistance.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
You're
your
welcome. Item number 6 has to do with the approval of a lawsuit against the county. That being said, I'd like to take it up in executive session with the county attorney. You can bring us through the details. Concluded executive session. Moving on to item number 6, authorizing the approval of the settlement of a lawsuit. Can I have a motion to approve of item number 6, Mr. Clennahan? I will second the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Can I have a motion?
Mr. Higgins, before we go, could I ask a quick question?
Yes.
I actually had 2 local laws and resos on previous law agendas that seem to have disappeared.
Yeah, mine did too.
Where are they?
Mine did too. I think with and I didn't know this was gonna happen, but in past practice, they've taken them off after 2-year cycles. And I think, I talked to Mr. Signoranci about it. My bills were taken off, so I'm interested in seeing how we can get them back on.
Yeah, I'd love to know the reasoning for that, because it's not like, leadership changed, but not like we started a new term.
I know, but 4 years ago, that's
I
2 years
get
ago.
it. We're not in this.
Same thing, so I think they were just kind of following it.
Well, I can see it 2 years ago, because that's a new legislature, but
Oh,
this is
yeah,
not a new
I don't
legislature.
know. I will find out, and hopefully I'll get some more information for you.
Okay, yeah, sooner the better, because if I need to reintroduce, I want to get that as soon as
Yeah,
possible.
absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Did you do that on all the ones? There were a number of them.
Oh, there were a whole bunch.
That's what I'm wondering about.
Now, motion to adjourn?
Talk to,
Same. All right, thanks, everybody.
Tell you, sorry.